This is going to be a video response to Esplin227's latest video, which was a response to my last video to him. In his video, Esplin tries to argue that atheism has the domain on rationality. In this video, I will attempt to just address his main idea. This video is not scripted. Yeah. So let's get started.
To the Thunderbolt 94, you said rational roundtable. I did not call you a liar. I said you were lying. No difference between the two statements was your response. Yes, there is. There's a huge difference between the two statements. If you're not an absolutist and you don't believe that lying automatically brands you as a liar, that's not what the word means. Look up the word in the dictionary. It doesn't just mean one who lies. Unless you find a Christian dictionary or, well, a fundamentalist dictionary, or you read a book by way of the master. Either way, that's not what it means, okay? So yes, it does. Yes, they are two different statements. You're just wrong. I'm not even going to go into more of that.
Before I address this, let me first get the other part out of the way. In regards to your way of the master reference, most Christians who are intellectually honest with their faith would not take way of the master seriously. Also, as a Catholic myself, going into the Catholic Church, why would I use a Protestant resource when, as a believer in Catholic doctrine and as me accepting the authority of the Pope, why would I use a Protestant source, especially a source like the Way of the Master, when I'm supposed to follow Catholic doctrine? In regards to your point about my comment on your video, the reason I said that on your video was simple. You accuse Michael of lying in that instant. Now, Michael sent me a PM a while ago saying he could actually concedes to the point about you not calling him a liar. And he's willing to concede to that. I, however, after thinking it over thinking over in my head, come to the conclusion that I would have to disagree with that. Here's why. You accuse Michael of lying. And when you are making a lie, you are a liar. In that context, think of it this way. When you're in a court and someone asks you to say, what happened? And you decide to lie. It's strictly in that context you lied. When you're lying when you're saying false things, trying to convince yourself of things that you know are not true, you're lying to yourself. That is why I said there is no difference in what you said. Because you're never saying you are accusing Michael of being a pathological liar or a provisional liar or any of that stuff. We are saying you accuse Michael of being a liar strictly in the context of this particular discussion. But that is why I made that comment on your video, because you accuse Michael of lying. It's not about using the Ray Comfort logic, as you put it. It's about talking about in a specific context. You know what we mean when we say you accuse someone of being a liar. You are nitpicking. And it really surprises me that we have to explain this to you.
I already explained the domain of rationality. Obviously, I didn't mean we hold the domain of rationality in the rational way to fucking manufacture cars. I'm talking about this specific situation. In any situation, Let's say all situations are orbs. Rationality is a circle right here. I don't know what it's called, sort of like a circle graph or something. There is the rationality circle, and then there is, say, how to make cars. And that's over here, and you notice they'll overlap. Like, look. Rationality, cars. And all these other circles, obviously this is an insanely big rationality circle, but all these other circles interlap with the rationality circle. On this side of the making cars circle, there's making a car out of cheese. Cheese. On this side, there is making a car with a combustion engine out of steel and other such hard materials. Those who are the car steelist are in the rationality circle, you fucktard. Those who are in the making cars out of cheese are out of the domain of rationality, you cheese dick.
Okay. First of all, that circle you were asking, that's a Venn diagram. Second, your analogy about the cars and the cheese is a false analogy, because we are not talking about the natural, we're talking about the supernatural. We're talking about the universe. We're talking about what caused everything to exist if there was a cause. Comparing that to a car manufacturing exercise, and whether or not if it's rational to make a car out of cheese, to whether or not there is a God, is a false analogy. Even if I were to grant your analogy as being close, we're not talking about whether or not atheism is true or false, or whether theism is true or false. We're talking about who has the domain on rationality. And the truth is, neither side has the domain on rationality, because rationality is the exercise of reason. Rationality and rationalism are not the same thing. You are confusing the two. Also, you fail to take into account of the concept of worldview. Just because you find atheism compelling, it does not mean that someone else will. And when I mean by compelling, I don't mean like comforting. I mean you find the evidence for atheism to be compelling to the point where you believe it to be true. You believe atheism is true and that theism is false. However, just because you find the evidence for atheism compelling, it does not mean that others will believe the same thing. That's not, you do not take into account of worldviews. Atheism is the belief that God does not exist. Theism is the belief that God does exist. That's it. Those are just simple definitions. Straight to the core of this whole discussion. You can be a theist and not be a Christian. You can be an atheist and not be a naturalist. All atheism is a claim about the existence or non-existence of God. You can be an atheist and believe in ghosts or believe in the soul. All atheism is about God, nothing else. Atheism doesn't tell you whether to be rational. It doesn't tell you how to live your life. It doesn't tell you how to buy a car or how to use its critical thinking skills. That's it. There's nothing else to atheism. You are confusing rationalism. You are also confusing rationalism with rationality. Rationalism and rationality are not the same thing. Rationalism is the belief that things there are certain truths that cannot be empirically verified. Rationality is the exercise of reason. When you say that atheists have a domain on rationality when it comes to the topic of God's existence, you are making a very bold claim. I can easily turn around and say, well, it has been shown beyond his reasonable doubt that he exists. To say you're an atheist is to borrow from the domain of theists. You and I both know that is ridiculous. Also, to make the claim that atheists have a domain on rationality, even on a specific concept, is to presuppose that you actually have irrefutable evidence for your position, which is ridiculous. Because to even say that atheists have a domain on rationality on this is to beg the question.
Theism. Those who are in the realm of rationality, in that they see that no specific deity has enough evidence to support his existence, and that the evidence that is there is circumstantial, straight up debunked, or anecdotal at best. Those who are outside of the rationality circle of theism are wrong. They are not within the dome or the domain of rationality. Yes, in terms of theism, atheists who are coming to their conclusions by... I know there are atheists who are just like, I don't give a fuck, you know. I'm not talking about those guys. I don't give a shit about those guys. You don't give a shit about those guys. Though I see a lot of times you attack those guys because, I don't know, maybe you don't want to attack an atheist that has an argument. Though I haven't looked at all your videos. That could be completely wrong. I just looked at one or two of them to know where you're coming from. You're a Christian, so I'm not surprised you strawman me.
First of all, watching only one or two of my videos does not give you a full picture as to who I am as a person. You only see my religion. In fact, I actually have 2 videos on that topic that I would recommend you watch. I will post those in the description box. Second, being a Christian or whatever only tells you half the story of an individual person. Yes, Christianity, specifically Catholicism, does play a significant role in my life. However, Catholicism only tells you half the story about who I am as a person, what I think, what I believe, how I feel, and so on and so on. Even for the sake of argument that I strawmanned you, it's not because of who I am as a Christian. It's because I am a human being. Third, on my channel, I don't just criticize atheists. And I definitely don't just criticize dumb atheists or fundy atheists. I criticize other Christians. I've criticized Inventor Gorilla. I've criticized Venom Fang X. I've criticized other Christians. I don't make any special treatment in terms of my direction of criticism towards an argument simply because they hold the same worldview as I do when it comes to religion. You are making a hasty generalization about me without getting to know who I am as a person. And that, in my opinion, is intellectually unfair. I'm not going to respond to the rest of your video because it's just you repeating yourself and going on a rant. And honestly, I don't have time for that. And many a times, I don't think you are interested in having a discussion with a rational Christian, because in your mind, you've already made up your mind that atheism is rational and theism is irrational. And in your mind, people who disagree with you are being irrational. In your video, you've accused me of being, quote unquote, a cheese dick and a fucktard. More than once. That's not rational, dude. You can't claim to be wanting rational discussion and resort to childish behavior. If you disagree with me, fine. Half of my subscribers disagree with me. I welcome that readily. But to claim that you hold a domain on rationality is, again, to be begging the question, not take account of worldview, and to have this mentality of, I'm right, you're wrong, if you disagree with me, you're irrational. I'm not interested in having that discussion. When you're ready to have an adult conversation regarding religion, I'd be more than willing to have that. That is why, at the end of my last video, I recommend you take anger management class. Because if you're not if you know that you're going to lose your temper simply because you find it disgusting that people engage in intellectual dishonesty, and you know you'll lose your temper, that tells me you're not ready to have conversations with adults. Have a nice day. Unless you have something else to say, I'm done.